We'll begin with our first panel. Our first panel is all about the billion-dollar question: what does it take for AI startups to succeed? Here's a wild statistic for you. Over 75 billion has already been invested into AI startups globally in the past 2 years. Yet, despite the massive capital, most don't make it beyond the first few years, unfortunately. So what we're here to learn is what separates the ones that soar from the ones that stall. Is it access to funding, the strength of leadership? Is there something less obvious like resilience and adaptability that makes the difference? This panel is going to get real about what it actually takes for AI startups to make a difference. Now, to guide us through this conversation, please put your hands together in a massive round of applause and welcome our moderator, Mr. Maximus Lee, the founder and CEO of Emboldened. Joining him, we have our first panelist, Mr. Eric Bollender, the CEO of Click Data AB. Put your hands together. Didn't make it. That is all right. Put your hands together up next for Mr. Damien Kopp, the Managing Director of Reboot Up. Joining them is Mr. Derek Czar, the owner of Opdi and CodePrid. Let me hear you. Along with Mr. Marcus Goldbach, the CEO of Mentifee GmbH. Put your hands together. Along with Mr. Jabral Idris, the founder of Inadi Tech. Put your hands together. And last but not least, Mr. David Ajan, the CEO, Ajanjan, yes, Ajanjan, Mr. David Ajanjan, the CEO of Riddick Technologies. Please put your hands together in a massive round of applause for all of our panelists.
Good morning. I know we're the first panel of the day, so I hope everybody got some coffee. We're very excited to be talking philosophical big questions this early in the morning. But what I would love to do is just to see and learn a little bit about where the group is coming from today. Who is based here in Dubai? Just a quick show of hands. All right. You are grossly outnumbered, sir. Thank you so much. You are a hero. And who has flown in for the conference? Amazing. Who here is coming from a startup? Oh, almost, yeah, 60%. So then who is here from government or larger corporations? Oh, amazing, okay. And then is there anybody here who is from a predominantly technical role, engineering, product, data science? Great. half and half. And then are the rest of you from business strategy, non-technical roles instead? Operations, amazing. Great, okay. All right, this is exactly the kind of conversation that I think we're hoping for. We get a good amount of breadth, but we can also afford to go a little bit more in depth with the nuances of what's going on. I would love to also have the panelists introduce ourselves so you can learn a little bit about us. So I'll go ahead and kick it off, and then we'll just do quick introductions down the line. My name is Maximus Lee. I spent almost 10 years of my life as a partner on the team at Google Ventures, and my job was to support the more than 400 startup investments from Google to scale their people and their revenue. So startups like Snowflake, Uber, Stripe, Flatiron Health. I saw Uber scale from 80 people to 500 people in 6 months and then become a market power. I saw Flatiron Health develop a data platform to help cancer patients to become a $2 billion acquisition by Roche. Today, I coach startup founders as they're scaling themselves and their people. Let's go to Damien.
Working? Yeah, okay. No. Can you guys hear me? Yes, okay, awesome. So Damien Kopp, nice to meet you all. I'm currently the managing director of Reboot. It's a boutique consulting company based in Singapore. We do a mix of a fractional tech advisory as well as fractional tech and AI consulting as well as tech advisory. Work with emerging companies So we blend to their team, as well as more traditional tech advisory for larger corporations. About 25 years of tech from my background. It is a bit choppy. All right, let me try again. 25 years of tech, have been working across Europe, North America, and Asia. I've been based in Singapore for about 10 years, and have been a startup founder myself. I've learned in the trenches, and not always in a good way, but it's been an interesting journey, and I'm happy to share whatever learnings I have, and so you don't make the same mistakes. You'll make your own, but maybe not these ones, at least. Very happy to be here.
Hello, my name is Derek Czar. I come from Australia. I am the owner of a company called Opti, very short, OPDE, and that is the digital marketing side of my brand, which is MarTech, running that, helping companies utilize AI in a digital space for advertising and also for their processes. I then own another company called CodeBridge, which is all about understanding how to do agentic development, taking AI, making your code bases AI native so that you're able to build and create very quickly using the self-healing capabilities of using AI. One of the things that we specialize in is understanding tech debt, how to not create more tech debt with all these automations and systems, how to get it in-house. And where we see the future is going, instead of having one company that has 500 developers, instead we see it being probably 500 companies with one developer. Because AI is able to level the playing field when it comes to developing. And we spend a lot of time understanding how to use AI for development purposes and processes. I'm also a fractional CTO for a few companies, one that sells specifically franchise businesses. I'm also a CTO for several companies that are working on solving the social housing problems in Australia. And I assist them on how to use AI to understand processes, building, time, and how we can use AI to lower the time, lower the cost of development, so that there's no loss of money in a building industry.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Markus Goldbach, and my lifelong passion has been being a student, and for half of my life, I've been a teacher. And all this passion for education has driven me to trying to understand better how the brain works, and ultimately, how can we rebuild the brain and find something external that is equal to us or helps us a lot to make our brain even stronger and train that muscle. And in fact, I have founded 3 companies until to this point, and the company I'm currently running is called Mentify, and we are trying to make sure that AI is being used in a responsible way that really helps and promotes learning and mankind ultimately, so we can have a brighter future tomorrow. Thank you.
Hey, hello. Okay, hi. My name is Jibrail. You can call me Jib for short. I am from Singapore. So I'm the founder of Init AI. What we do as a company is that we offer agentic infrastructure for small businesses. So I've been through several agentic iterations over the past year and a half. So what I realized is that most of these companies, they spend 6 figures just to kickstart an agentic project, right? So typically you would approach a software agency and then have the agency code you a 6-figure sum. And then 80% of the funding is usually allocated to infrastructure. Whereas then you have the remaining 20% of the funding really meant to work on your business requirements, right? So after like several iterations, I realized, hey, look, we can actually productize the infrastructure and offer agentic infrastructure as a service. So what we do is we offer customer, okay, you come on board, you pay us a sum of money every month, subscription, and you get access to production-ready agentic infrastructure immediately for use. And you can iterate, experiment as much as you want, and that reduces your risk, your project timeline, and your project duration. Project risk, cost, and duration. So, and also aside from that, this is my 3rd startup. I've done like 2 startups before. They're all tech related. But this is my first AI startup.
Yeah, hi guys. My own mic. My name is David. I come from a venture studio company, We've I founded it 15 years ago. It was just an IT company, and then we evolved into a venture studio. We, our head office is in Estonia, Europe, and now we have office here in Dubai as well. So for the past 15 years, we've been building solutions in tech world, and now we're here.
So we're going to sort of a little bit of technical difficulty, so my apologies for that. I just thought we could get right down into it. This is a question that many people have been asking. Wall Street analysts would say AI is a conservatively $10 trillion industry by the year 2030. Many other people say that everything is a bubble and that it will not last. I would love to know from the group, where do you think enduring value comes from for an AI startup? Is it data? Is it models? Is it regulatory protection? Is it something else entirely? And Jib, I think I'll just go ahead and throw it out to you. I know you have a pretty strong opinion about that.
Okay. I believe that there's certainly a hype to AI startups for sure. And of course, the data mode, right? The data mode regarding the AI startup is really all about having the exclusive access to proprietary data. So proprietary data is important then because with proprietary data means you get exclusive outcomes, right? That's really exclusive to you and not to everyone else, right? So that strengthens your data mode in some sense. And secondly, right, data I believe should be well structured, and the well structured data then produces better reasoning for the agent, right? And lastly, of course, the data switching, the switching cost. So if your agentic solution is sort of like tied down to a specific solution, and it's really hard to switch from one solution to another, that creates that locks down the value of a solution, right? And of course, lastly is the infrastructure. So with a good infrastructure, then that would really kind of lock in the agentic solution. Yeah.
So for you, clearly data, obviously Google agrees with you and their stock is doing very well right now. And then I also know about Anthropic, which is a company where, as I understand, the entire code base gets rewritten from scratch every 3 or 4 days. So they're clearly banking on a model-based. Marcus, Derek, I mean, what do you guys think? Are you also pro data, or is there a different kind of use case that you're thinking about?
Well, data is certainly a super important aspect, but as far as I'm concerned, it's really 4 pillars that you cannot ignore. A, you need to have the right model for the right purpose. There's RAG models and other stuff, right? Then you have the question about regulations that you have to meet for certain markets, and for other markets you do not have to care so much, but those that do may have that niche possibility to succeed there. And lastly, you also have, as every startup or every business for that matter, care about how you integrate in the current business processes. Are you in the CRM? Are you in the LMS, etc., that the customers use today and where they can find their AI applications?
Well, I just want to say, when it comes to the various models, right now people are thinking of, okay, I'm going to be adding in AI into my infrastructure. And they immediately think of going frontier model. Frontier model being like OpenAI, being Claude. We're going to use this for all of our information. And the problem is they're a generalist model. They know everything. You're going to be spending a lot of time guardrailing and preventing the toxic outputs. The thing is having your own data, your own training, your own synthetic is really important. And then you can use your own models, preferably like a blank model, like Gemma, for example. Something that you can put your training in. So when it comes to what's going to be the future, is it going to be the data or is it going to be the model? It's probably going to be a marriage of the two. So where you have the model that you're using that's blank, and then you have your knowledge base that you're feeding into it for very specific uses. So it's definitely going to be a mix of both of them.
Yeah, I'll have a say on that as well. So I 100% agree on this thing is most of the startups, what they don't realize is their main goal is to build on the LLMs, right? And there's quite few LLMs out there. So the future will be in LMs, like building a specific language model for the specific use. So if you're a startup or you're thinking how to move forward and if it's a bubble or not, and you feel how you're gonna fit in that world, I would suggest you go two paths. Either focusing on building LMs for specific niches of business, because again, as my co-panelist said, this will be the most probably will be the future of AI, of having their own language models that are tuned to fill the specific task. Or there's another way of going is for the hardware, because again, large language models, the companies, they're all service-based. They're all providing kind of a tech solution in the cloud or something, but none of them will tap into the hardware section. So if you think of going into building a startup, look into building small LMs and going in the hardware. Because if your business is based on the functionality that will be replaced in the future by big large language models, then you're most probably doomed to fail. So those data-driven data is a new currency and used to be. I mean, used to be a new currency back 15 years ago, right? Now they just started paying with it. But in general, yeah, I would suggest going LMs and hardware. That's 100%.
Maybe a bit of a different flavor to it as well. These are important technical aspects of the differentiation, but don't forget that, again, a successful business is also built on unique distribution models, solving a real problem for your clients and having targeted properly, be visible, so your go-to-market and how you execute on that go-to-market, how you become visible. It's not enough to just have a good product and wait for clients to come. You know, you've got to work hard to also get them. So how you create partnerships, how you enable that go-to-market, how you create a unique distribution network and distribution channels, how you price. All these are also part of your differentiation. So let's not also forget that you can have a fairly undifferentiated tech, but if you're solving a real problem and you've been really good at creating this unique way of distributing your product or pricing it, that's also a mode that you can build on the long term, because it's still hard for people to replicate if it's based on unique relationships, exclusive partnerships, and maybe unique regions or very narrow industries where you go very deep. These are also important components to build your moat over time. So not just the tech, although it's super important, of course, but there's also the business layer that also can help you to stay ahead and avoid to be copied and continue to maintain that differentiation as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the perspectives here. And I think the thing that I would really want to communicate and emphasize for the group here is you have to know the nature of your business. There are some businesses, for example, AI for billing and billables for lawyers. There is not a lot of complexity with the model, but there's a lot of complexity, or there's a lot of stickiness with the data, and there's a lot of stickiness with the user switching cost. So the first thing that you always have to decide is when I'm reading X or newspapers, and they're saying this is the thing that you need to do to be successful, does it make sense for your business? So I think that for all the business people here, right? The other thing to know is that your first adopters are generally not the people that are going to help you win in the marketplace. And those people are not the people who are going to drive your real ability to actually endure. So I always say, don't focus on your competition, focus on your community, all right? And 80% of what we're building today will become free commodities tomorrow. GoDaddy is a business. They used to charge $50,000 per web domain. It is now $495 unless somebody owns the thing that you want. So do you know actually the nature of your business, and are you actually putting in the anchors in your company leadership, culture, building processes to be able to last for the long term? Airtable is a company where starting 2 years ago, the CEO said, I want everybody who's a senior engineer to spend 2 weeks of their time rebuilding everything they've done for the last year in 3 days using AI. And if you can't do it, you should think a lot about whether or not an AI company will just take over what we're doing. Do you have the foresight as a leader to implement those principles in your company? Because the model, the data, those things need to undergo stress tests to be able to do it well. I think that there's actually probably another good question here, which is all of us work as consultants with different kinds of clients. when a company comes to you and asks a question, right? What do I as an AI startup need to do to be successful? What are you seeing people get wrong over and over again? What are the bad patterns that just feel so obvious or so underleveraged? Yeah.
Thanks. I think a bit back on my previous comment in a way is if you focus exclusively on the technology, which I think in the past couple of years have been the trend, but I think for the right reason. Like nobody really knew what you could do with the tech. So it was an exploratory phase to understand, okay, what can this tech do and what are the possible applications? So you go like bottom up and from a engineering thinking perspective, what can it do? But then you need to put to your other hat again, is like, okay, what are the real problems I can help solve and are they worth solving it? And an example for me, having worked across the West and the East, is I see a lot of companies making the mistake, especially coming from the West to the East, to think that if it worked in the West, it's going to work in Asia, for example. But you got to remember the economics of the technology you bring, the complexity, the cost of operating it, the cost of deploying it, with the economic of just labor cost or affordability in countries. So example, I've sold tech across the US and Europe and then brought it to Asia, and you talk to people in Indonesia, in Thailand, and Philippines, they're like, well, you know, the labor cost here, automation is not my problem. My problem is speed to market. My problem is localization. My problem is scalability. So the problem you solve with tech also depends a lot on the regional, the macroeconomics as well of the countries and the market you deploy to. And you may have to reinvent completely the way you build your technology and your product to accommodate for the local market needs. And your competition will be very different because you're competing with different macroeconomics in that context. So super important to keep in mind, I think, the local flavors of it, as well as the user experience you build around it. I don't know if you've noticed how an Asian app looks like versus a Western app looks like. The design pattern are completely different. You know, the West goes for integration, single use case, minimalist UX. In Asia, it's actually an all-in-one app, the super app context. You plug everything in. It's a lot busier in terms of interface, a lot richer. There's a lot of gamification. There's a lot of reward. And all this stuff, again, that means the single app model where you can scale across the globe, I don't think is very efficient. So again, there's a lot of different aspects of how you have to accommodate for not just the tech, but obviously the local environment as well. That can also create huge differentiation as well.
David, I'd love to turn it to you because I'm curious, do you see in your world, is it basically the case they're not thinking enough about hardware, everybody's dependent on NVIDIA, and that's a killer? Is that the mistake that most of your people are seeing?
Yes, that and also the risk factor, right? It's much easier to build something, a software, rather than the hardware, because you have to commit, you have to buy the ingredients, you have to buy the components, put them together, and it also requires much a different set of skills, right? Again, how the startups, I cannot tell you the success formula, but the startups and the teams I see that succeed are the teams that are invested in their future, in the sense that you have engaged teams, you have people who care. So again, it's not about the, I'll phrase like that. If you want to build a hardware team, hardware product, you have to have a team with a good soft skills. So soft skills, hardware. That way you can definitely succeed, because people who are engaged, who have hunger in their eyes, who are looking to build something great, and that's the one of the formulas of success, because they'll be always caring how to make your product better. Because as a CEO, you cannot look into the future, right, if you don't have your basic needs covered, right? You have the team that's running the operational cost. You have the team that will be figuring out if you have made any mistakes or something like that. So again, you have to have a full package in the sense of the team that is looking out for you, and then you can move on with building something great. Because eventually, one person is not an army. You cannot look into build something great on your own. You always have to invest in your team, and the team's capabilities are always about the soft skills. Hard skills you can teach the team. You can adapt, like especially in the era of AI, that the AI can do quite a lot of robust tasks and mundane tasks, right? So it's all about the creativity of the team and that they can actually be invested in your future, in your success. So again, hardware is one option that I suggested, but definitely not the only one. But it's, to me right now, it's the easiest one because not that many companies are tapping into it. I know that Jeff Bezos, I think, is now created his own startup, and they already gathered several billion, and it's focused on hardware. But that just proves my case.
So, and I would love to ask Marcus. Sorry, let me ask Derek for a second here. Hardware takes a long time to build. It takes a long time to become profitable. I think that the people who win are allowed even before they get it perfect. And that's a marketing problem, that's a branding problem, that's a talent attraction problem. There's going to be an excellent session in the afternoon about marketing and branding. But what are you seeing in your world when it comes to that intersection? Not getting it perfect, already starting to brand.
Derek, for Marcus, I didn't hear.
For you, Derek.
For you. Actually, I just want to, there's a couple of questions here. Very first thing I actually want to interject with what Damon was saying is when you see an app being built and when you're looking at the Asia apps, they're everywhere. They've got a lot of things happening, a lot of stuff going. And what I'm finding from the Australia side is affordance is the best way to explain this is single-use application. When we're building and creating using AI, you can build so quickly that scope creep becomes a major problem. Where all of a sudden you're like, I'm solving this one problem, and then a week later, I'm solving all these problems. And it becomes so complex that users cannot keep up with it, and it's hard to actually find your starting point. So that's one thing I was seeing, and I wanted to interject it, but can I move it over? And I do agree with what David is saying here, is that a single person is not an army, but AI allows a single person to manage a platoon of people. Because of all those AIs, you can get a lot of good feedback coming into it. Sorry, I just wanted to bring that conversation into it. But what was your question again? Sorry, I had so many wonderful things to say.
Branding. When should startups start thinking about branding and marketing for themselves?
So going back into the affordances, thinking about what is the problem you're solving, and when you're building and developing, solve that one problem. Do not allow scope creep to occur, and branding should start. Typically, you should know what you're going to be branding, what you're going to be selling before you start developing it. Solve that one thing. Don't get scope creep that we're solving the world. As I say, don't become the next ClickUp, which does like 100 different things and 1,000 different things. It's very, very hard to find your niche, to find your area.
Touch back on David's point about soft skills and people, which is something that is very much close to my heart. I think that, you know, when I was working with Google Ventures, my job was if I could get you from 50 to 150 without breaking the quality of your team, 150 to 500 without breaking your culture, you will sell for money. And today, I feel like if I'm working with a company that needs more than 150 people to do something that is not supply chain organized, then we're probably not using AI enough. So I'm starting to see changes in hiring and organizational culture because of AI. And I'm curious for you, David, for you, Marcus. Actually, we'll go to Marcus. You started your career in plagiarism. I can't do coding interviews online anymore because of cheating, plagiarism, all of those things. What have you seen change because of the culture of teams because of AI?
That one worked before. Okay, thank you. So, cultural change that AI brings along is huge. And while I cannot talk for all the domains out there, I have quite of an insight into education. And it goes beyond education at some point when you want to know whether the text you have in front of you, or the picture, or the video, or the podcast you hear, is that something that person that I'm interested in has created? Or is that person just taking a detour or a shortcut and has created all this without actually being the person that could create these things? So to differentiate your personal contribution from external contribution has always been a big thing, and it's always been important. That hasn't changed. When you hire someone, when you want to give someone a grade, when you want to trust someone and know that all the skills are really there. But with AI, that has and will become tremendously more difficult. And the answer, like how can we make sure that future recruiters will know, I cannot give. But I have a lot of ideas on how we can get there. And I think what's important now that we keep also a focus on this part, that we can still identify human contribution. Even though I love AI, I use it every day. I'm not saying don't use it or stop. No, put the gas pedal down, but have the same development in parallel going.
If you may, there's also a different view on that. An aspect that we should consider is that all of us were born in the era without AI. So everybody in this room are not, sorry for being brute and honest, are not the ones who will be shaping the future, right? We have a next generation coming up, and that's a totally different problem that we have to face right now. Even me, we're trying to find a new generation. We're trying to find a new, like next ones who will lead our companies and projects, because we have to look like before, like 10 years prior to that. And we understand that there's a huge gap in generations between ours and the next ones. It's like the ones who, again, AI is similar to the internet, right? When they invented internet, so it was really hard for us to explain to the older generation why they should start using internet, right? And it couldn't. There was just a cultural generation gap. Right now, the same thing will happen with the next generation when they are already been born into AI. It's part of their daily lives. They don't think about how to implement it. They don't think what's gonna be there. It's just there. It's just there, and it's part of their use, right? Again, when I'm asking my kids how are they making photos, and they're not doing like that, they're doing like that, right? And that makes me feel old. Same thing with the newer generation. They already think as AI was always there and part of their life, and they will have a total different vision. So again, as a businessman, as a person who builds products for a while and wants to continue doing that, for me, one of the problems that I'm still trying to solve is how to find people in the next generation that will have the same values as mine and can take over the business. But unfortunately, again, there's a huge generation gap in the sense like it's all because of AI. Now again, you have a platoon of in one AI, and they're trying to figure it out. But how to solve that? That's a total different thing. And unfortunately, right now I don't have an answer for that. But we should understand that the future is in the next generation, and they think totally different way. Right? Yeah, we know how to make money. We know how we can see success. We can differentiate success, and we can invest there. But how they think and how they solve problems will be different, and will definitely be rather intriguing to watch how the mindsets will evolve, having AI as a day-to-day tool and thinking that it's normal.
Maybe I'll add as well a little bit. You may have heard that Moderna, so Moderna is the lab who created the COVID-19 vaccine, right? They've merged, and they've announced that they merged recently their HR and IT department together. And I think that's a very interesting sign. In my work in the past 6 months with a large FMCG company in Singapore, we did actually something similar, looking at how agentic AI is actually changing the architecture of work. And why is because it's now you're managing teams of AI agents and humans, the nature of the workflows that now are part of your day-to-day activities. The start of the work could be automatically triggered by an agent, or it could be human initiated. The who supervise, who judge, who makes a decision, who reviews could be a combination of agents and people. And that means the kind of organization you need to organize, you need to structure, is changing. You know, it may not be such hierarchical anymore. It could be flatter. It could be the way you hand over work from an agent to a human is changing the nature of how things are being executed, how you measure performance. Because now, if everyone is AI augmented, what kind of output, what success looks like, looks different. You may change your expectation. Now you have access to all these tools, all these data. Your output may be different. You should be able to deliver maybe more and faster, maybe with different depth or quality. So that is changing how the traditional AI and IT are meant to work together. And I think this trend now is quite interesting that, again, someone like Moderna and the client I'm working with are looking at it from a again, this new lens and perspective. I know it sounds a bit out there, but this is actually what I think agentic AI specifically is bringing as a new opportunity to rethink this kind of organization structure and how we look at work in general.
May I?
I just want to say, when it goes back into David's side, is we are currently using AI like a sledgehammer. We don't know what it can do, where it's going to go. Essentially, if you can imagine AI usage, we're right now drawing stick figures. We're not to the point of where we actually can understand the nuances of what AI will do, where it's going to go in the future. We're not drawing beautiful pieces of artwork with AI. Like I said, we're at stick figures. We're still exploring it. We're trying to figure out what it can do, what it's going to change. We know it's going to affect everybody, every industry, every culture. We just don't know it yet. And if you're in the AI startup side and you're actually building something, you're going to be probably building this process. But as time goes on, you probably start finding more and more nuanced ways that really is that protection. And you're not just a data wrapper or an AI wrapper. You're actually solving things in a nuanced way.
Yeah, well, I would like to address the point of cultural change with respect to AI. I'll be addressing this point strictly from the business point of view, because I feel that with the emergence of AI, agentic AI, expectations from business owners towards their employees have really increased over the years. Like what used to be, oh, I expect 2x or 5x from my employees, now I expect 50x, 100x, right? So I definitely do feel this cultural change within organizations as I speak to my clients, to my leads, and some of these employees address concerns to me like, hey, Jib, hey, I'm not able to catch up with this era of AI. How do I change? How do I adapt? So my advice to them is always learn. Never stop learning. Understand what it means to use agentic AI in your day-to-day job, and work with credible vendors who can, help you achieve that 50x, that 100x that your employers are really looking for. Because at the end of the day, right, if you're not in AI, you'll be out of a job. That is a fact. So I think that's one. And number two, the way you work within the organization has to change as well. You can't just wait for someone to tell you, hey, look, this is your job, this is your task, right? You got to be more proactive. You got to be more engaging. You got to strengthen your soft skills, because AI is there to kind of handle the mundane, repetitive part of your job, and that's where your soft skills really shine in this era of AI. If you are an introvert and then you are shy, you're not really proactive, then culturally in the organization, I don't think you fit in anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll share something that some of my clients are trying right now. We're just changing the incentive structure of how you build your team makes a massive difference to how performance and excellence gets measured. So for example, I have companies where we basically say, to invest well in your people, payroll should be 40 to 50% of your total expense output. So anything where I do not make a hire as a person and I'm able to use automations to get the same work done, that goes back to those employees as a bonus, as a pay raise. So I have people who are performing one head, 3 people's work because of AI. I pay them like 2.5 people's salary, because I'll never go below 50% in order to get that sense of investment in my people. And it's weird because typically, if you're not doubling the size of your team every year, you don't feel like you're growing as a company. We think in empires. But in the age of AI, I'm actually thinking in terms of what I don't need a human to do without compromising quality. And I'm not going to do that by creating a sense of deprivation in my team. Hey, look at all the work that I'm doing. I only got paid a 10% bonus. Well, gosh, that person is going to leave, start their own company, and then sell consulting services back to you at 3x the cost. Pay them what they're worth and don't underinvest in your people. It's a completely different model. No comp survey result will justify it, but that's excellence, and that's how I'm investing. Are there other sort of practical tips that we could be able to share with this group before we move into the final wrap-up session? Please, you have a question.
Thank you for the great discussion here. So, my name is Jad. I'm born in Dubai. I'm based here since it was a road in 1988 and a building. That's what it was. I'm an exited founder. I scale companies from 0 to 1 and 1 to 100. I'm a co-founder with this gentleman over here, Jibril. And I have two questions. So the first one is, so we hear a lot about AI, increasing efficiency and all that. But what's been the most credible revenue generating tool, or you see one coming up in the next 12 or 24 months? So we're talking top line expansion here, not productivity. So that's my first question. And the second one is, so I work a lot with teams that are, marketing-led growth and product-led growth. And I see customer-led growth now coming up as emerging as a new, fashionable thing that is a hybrid between both those two functions. But I still see a lot of friction between, like the engineering teams and the marketing teams. Like they think everything can be solved with engineering, and it can, yes, I know you can. But why? Google does this, or WordPress can, Next.js on Unreal. I get it. You can make a website, you can engineer the heck out of it. But you got WordPress, you got Google. Where do you draw the line between, engineering and marketing-led growth, or what's out there already that we can leverage? So that's my second question. If anyone of you can please answer those two, that would be lovely. Thank you.
I'd like to jump on question one. And they're called, or the generative AI we talk about currently when we say AI in short, is based on large language models. We said it before. And what we can see, for example, is that in education, or the usage of OpenAI dramatically decreased during the summer break. So many of the people using these tools are students at the moment. And what do students do? They solve certain low-level problems that come out of the box, and that's AI is very good at. It's one thing. And the other thing is they produce a lot of text. And you're asking what creates revenue. Currently, that doesn't create so much revenue, but it's the highest use case I see today or saw yesterday. So without looking into the future, we have that for certain. That's in the box. And anything you can create around that, or maybe it has already been created, can result in revenue, in my opinion.
So I'll add some on the revenue generation part. So the problem I was faced with my past client, again, FMCG company, and the question they asked me is, look, I need to triple my revenue in the next 3-4 years, and I don't want to hire anybody, ideally. So I want to keep my headcount constant, but I want to triple the volume of business I can make. They have identified what are the growth levers they can activate to make that growth happen, and one of it is market expansion. So sell the same product I have today in more markets. So what it means is they need to be better at market entry. And if you look at and decompose that problem, it's like, what's market entry? You need compliance, you need better competitive, understand the competition locally, create new partnerships, better distribution, localize your content, your marketing content. And if you divide it, like if you look at all these different challenges, all these are frictions that are preventing them to enter new market faster and at lower cost. And so we looked at things like for marketing, for example, a big cost for this kind of company usually is the localization of content, because they use different agencies for different markets. They spend a tremendous amount of time coordinating who's going to do the translation, who's going to do the localization, who's going to check the compliance, the new labels, is it FDA approved or equivalent in other markets? And long story short, you look at the frictions that are preventing you to grow with the same kind of resources that you have today, and you try to unlock that. It's not just productivity. You have to reinvent the workflow. In this case, it's about insourcing some of the marketing workflow creation, because you can only minimize the amount of back and forth by effectively owning it. And then you say the last mile, the last 20%, which is approval, reviewing the translations can be done locally in countries, but maybe you avoid 3 or 4 back and forth. Now your team of 5 people who's doing market entry, maybe they can open up 5 markets in a month instead of 3 and 6, right? So that's a way where you can create significant amount of value, but you have to go down into how will I make money tomorrow, and to what are the frictions, what is preventing me to move faster today, and looking at where you need to not just do faster what you do today, but rethink how you can do it differently so you effectively completely change the game and become really, really good at it. I think that's a key differentiation.
I'm going to grab a hold of the very first question you had there. As far as where I'm seeing money being made and like the fastest growing drivers is 2 areas. So for decades, we've been getting tons of data. The problem is it's so much that we as humans cannot see. I mean, humans live in a very myopic world. I mean, most of us can barely remember what we did a week ago, let alone the months and years of data we've been compiling. So there's this thing which is a money saved, a dollar saved, a dollar earned. So one way that we applied it, and you can apply it to multiple businesses, is in construction. So this company had 17 years of construction data of their cost centers, how much it costs for a fence, for a hire to put tiles up. We took all that data, went through historical with AI, and found that there was over $1.44 million lost due to underpricing for that type of materials, what we call a BOQ. So what we did is put together an AI system that looks at estimates, says, hey, this is too low, this is too high, this is too low. This contractor actually takes 3 to 4 times longer than they're quoting. So let's increase our BOQ, let's set our timeframes, and all of a sudden we're making money. Same thing when you're doing things like going through a fintech side and you're trying to forecast data, which makes this absolutely amazing. That's why you're seeing this in cryptocurrency, is it can look for those historicals, it can look for those trends, and it can find where you can make money or can save money, and it can find actionable insights in vast arrays of data. And so AI is great at finding needles in the proverbial data haypile or haystack. Can't even talk.
I'm going to put my investor hat on, and I'll tell you, I primarily work and invest with 2 different types of companies. One where the sales cycle is very short, and I would say that the primary industries where that is happening, where a company go from 0 to $30 million in 18 months, is insurance billing, it is inventory management for supply chain, and operational efficiency. So an AI product that looks at the ingredients that is in storage for a restaurant, and then as something runs out, immediately is able to replace it with a cheaper ingredient to maximize the profit and change it on the menu, that sells really quick, right? Those are probably not billion-dollar companies, but they will be indispensable for 50,000 and live on as a business. The second, the sort of industry and the category where I think there are billion-dollar opportunities that's selling very quick are all cybersecurity. Spam, bots, right? What does it mean for us to be able to have some sort of, this is a real person verification talking to you, and so then I don't have to be afraid of false information, data misuse, privacy abuses. That also sells pretty fast. David?
Yeah, I'll be quick. So answering your first question, again, my co-panelists, the great ideas and great visions, but when they say, when it starts snowing, still the shovels, right? So here's the same thing. You know how my kid uses App Store to choose what kind of application he wants? It taps in the search, finds different options, make a screenshot, ask ChatGPT which one is the best, right? So again, a very good niche would be adjusting, helping companies being suggested by LLMs. That's a huge niche. That's no one. There are people who are tapping into it. And again, as you said about marketing, the next thing in marketing is not about how the SEO works, how to be able to pop up in search engines, but rather how to be suggested by LLMs. So that's definitely a niche and I saw people who are already building those businesses, helping companies to be visible. So that's there where it's quite easy to enter. There's not that many skills are required, and there's not many talents, so you can grow your own talent. regarding your second question is where's the line between engineering and the marketing is uh, engineer, engineering is about building a great product. Marketing is about using your product, right? And once I think the founder of LinkedIn said, if you're not embarrassed about your product when you launch, you're too late, right? So again, you have to launch as fast as possible to understand if your product is needed on the market or not, and then be able to adjust to the market needs. Because if you launch too late, you have already invested a lot in the building of a product. You're not agile enough to change everything. You have your own vision and think that the users are wrong because they don't understand you and don't understand the vision. So in my opinion, launch with MVP. As soon as you have something feasible, launch it, and then you see how market reacts. And based on that, already adjust to what actually is needed. Again, the things you think, the solution you have for the problem doesn't mean that the market needs that. Most probably, are your user either too smart or too dumb, right? Again, just adapt to it. And there's no early launch. I'm not talking about security issues. Again, if you're talking about fintech product, if you're talking about working with assets and something like that, then the security it has to be the top priority. But everything else, just launch as fast as possible. If you see how the market reacts and adapt to the market. That's the easiest answer to that.
I think
I'll
we
go
have room
next.
for one more question.
Oh,
Yeah, you want to stand up and shout your question?
So, hi guys, I'm Jay and I'm from Shraddha Infosystems. I'm the CTO. I'm from India. So, basically, like we're here all about the $1 billion question, right? So, my question is with AI and such tools, problem solving has been done like it's happening in a sleep right now. Like you said, Anthropic is changing their code base every 3 days, right? So let's say for example for startups right now, I think it's not the ability to solve a problem is my view, and I want to know your views as well. I think it's the ability who has the best mode of communication to that application. Like he said, Asia has some different apps, single app pricing, and Europe has some different nature of front end, right? So, do you think the problem solving ability will be less dominant, but the more dominant part will be the interaction level? So, right now, agentic AI is pretty boring. I'll be a bit frank, okay? Because when you're starting a conversation, neither the system nor you have context, right? Unless it's a specific model for a problem. And same way in an app, you get confused because there are so many options. So are we trying to reduce the clutter or are we trying to increase it? Or someone who brings a unique solution in the middle is going to dominate the market? Because problem solving is easy right now. But the communication gap in users is what is the barrier in scaling up companies, right? So yeah, that is my question. What is a unique way of interaction that you can have with any technology is, I think, what decides the success of a product and the scale.
shall I? Okay. I think firstly, thank you for your question. Um, any product, right, regardless of whether it's AI or not, the strength of a product really lies in the mode of the product, MOAT. So the mode is the most important part of the product. It's how sticky your product is to your customers, right? So you can build the best product, right? You spend 10 months, 2 years, 5 years, you invest a lot of money. But if there's no stickiness, there's no mode, right? Your product has no value in the market because anyone could just replicate your product in 2 days, 3 days. We're now with AI, right? I'm sure you know, right? With vibe coding and stuff. So yeah, you could vibe code your app, but you should ask the more important question. How do I establish a moat around my product such that it cannot be replicated, it cannot be copied? Then once you answer that question, right, then you can think about, okay, how do I communicate with my customers, right? Is the narrative clear? Is the messaging clear? Is the branding clear? That's where marketing comes in. And then finally, I feel that the problem-solving part is really the last part of the equation in terms of product development. It used to be the other way around. Before AI, problem-solving was the key thing, right? Okay, what architecture? How do I make it scalable, everything? But in today's age, I think those are, I wouldn't say not important, but secondary concerns regarding application developments and products.
Okay, maybe with the risk of contradicting you a little bit, I still feel solving a real problem is why people will pay for your solution. So if you're not solving a problem, if you're a vitamin and not a painkiller, then you're not going to be successful on the long term. So you do need to solve a real problem that people are ready to pay for. What you're referring to, I think, is adoption. You could be solving a real problem, but it could be a real pain to use your product, therefore to solve the real problem. And in an enterprise context in particular, it's quite important because adoption is not just, is the app, does the app look good enough? Is it easy enough to onboard? In an enterprise context is it secure? Is it sovereign? Is it compliant? Is it explainable? And all this stuff actually compounds to create something actually far more complicated than just, is the UX actually nice and, do I feel good using it? Which is more a B2C problem, right? In a B2B context, you can create a lot of moat around what I just said, because be able to fit in that enterprise level scalability and robustness is actually a moat in itself. And your sales cycle is going to be 18 months, 24 months, so you need to build that patience into your go-to-market as well. That means have the runway, have the capital, have the market access to get to that as well. And that can be a huge moat ultimately as well, if you're successful at acquiring large enterprise customers.
Just gonna say, AI, like going through ChatGPT, Anthropic, and sitting there in the little chat box and talking, yeah, that's boring. 100%. What's fun is what tools can you create that AI can pick up and use? So agentic is essentially a little person walking around, and you can create tools that it can pick up and use. So like, for example, I got this data over here, all this data set, and instead of trying to feed that into the agentic so it can remember and use it, what tools can I create that AI, that agent can pick up and use to manipulate, splice, dice, create? Then can it take those little charts, pick up another toolbox, create a chart? Okay, I want this chart to be visualized like this, so I can get actual insights. The fun is not in the text generation. The fun is thinking like, what tools can I create that AI can pick up that can become very, very important? AI wrapper, that's boring. AI tool creation, that's fun.
I'm not so sure that's a new problem or something that has come up with AI. I think it's generally true that problem solving is just one piece of the puzzle. Google search has not been the first search engine online. Facebook is not the first social media that hit the market, but they were the ones that sticked. And how did they achieve that? Well, we can look at the past and try to learn from that and adopt it to the new culture also. And we cannot just copy it one by one, but I think we can still learn from it and then have a new look at it. So in the end, there's no easy answer, but you have to dig in and be the first one, making sure to know how do I get the stickiness in my niche.
We're about to come up on time, but all of us will be around afterwards to have more discussions. These are obviously very important and large questions, but I would love to go down the road, maybe starting from David, coming on down. What is one takeaway that you would love for the folks in this room to remember leaving this discussion? Obviously, we have solved all the things, and where can we find you online if they want to get in contact with you?
Well, there were great ideas, all of them, and there was definitely something sparked my mind, and I have to think about after the conference. But one idea, one thing that I would like you guys to think about is the next generation. Don't be focused on yourselves and think that you are the problem solver and you know how the world works. Think of the next generation that's going, right? Again, it's all about the next generation and how that they will be already born into this system with the AI, with the internet there on their hands, with all these digital assets, with all these metaverses and all that. So again, think about the next generation, how to adapt it to them, and how are they going to use that. And then definitely raise your own audience, raise your own clients, raise your own users, and that way I think it's definitely quite easy to succeed.
AI, like many other booms before, has been overhyped. So AI shouldn't be seen as a magic bullet to solving all problems. It is just a tool. So use your tool appropriately at the right context, at the right situation. The key point now is to focus on pain points for your customers. That's the most important thing. It's whether use AI or traditional coding. At the end of the day, it's about solving your customers' pain points. Yeah, sure, you can use AI to solve these problems faster, but the intention of engaging with your customers is always about solving their pain points. Yeah.
Human contribution in the AI era is going to change. But those that can manage that and learn and have the insight, what part of the human contribution is still valid, plus what AI can do for us, will succeed.
So AI, and so I'd think about this for a second. Human in the loop. So I've been talking about AI. We've had a lot of conversations about AI. The soft skills that David mentions are very important. AI should be thinking about how to not replace humans, but how to empower humans and how to make human connections more important, more valuable. And understanding AI goes only so far, but at some point, allow human in the loop. Let the human talk to people, let them converse with people, empower the human so it can serve people better. So when we're sitting here and I was talking about the construction application to save money, what it did is it allowed us to align better expectations with customers, where we're not saying they're having to increase the cost of a build, we're not blowing out on time, we are providing, we're matching expectation with results. And be thinking about that. So many companies are like, how can we replace our employees with AI? Be thinking about how do you empower your employees with AI?
Thanks. I'd like to finish on a quote by Peter Drucker, who was the father of innovation strategy, and he said, "There is nothing more useless trying to improve something that should not be done at all." And you think about problem solving and building solutions for everything, sometimes just, how about we just stop doing what we're doing? And call it process innovation instead of tech innovation. But that would be my takeaway.
I would say, don't ask the question what you're solving. Ask how will the world be radically different if you are wildly successful. So thank you so much for your time. We never won't have enough time, but we will be around. Thank you so much.